Super Rugby round 4. It's an all New Zealand followed by an all Aussie clash on the Friday. So just the two games. But they are pretty interesting looking games, I guess, for a couple of different reasons. We'll get into those in a minute. But yeah, I guess that's a good way to start off the weekend, which is pretty chock-packed full of rugby if you include Six Nations alongside Super Rugby. So it should be a good weekend for all of us rugby lovers. The first game sees the Hurricanes host the Highlanders. Now, these two teams have both got the same record at the moment. 2 wins and a loss, 2 wins and a loss. I suppose if you think about it, the Hurricanes' loss was not as bad because it was against the Crusaders away, and you kind of expect to lose that one. Most teams do. The Highlanders away to the Rebels, you think that's a match they could be winning. But I guess a key point for both these teams is the game that they lost, both of them, is a week where they didn't play their best team. With all the All Blacks having to have a certain amount of rest minutes this season, both these teams fielded less than full strength squads and they paid the price. So both of them look better when they've got the full kind of squad lined up. And yeah, both these sides this week thankfully look to be really going for the win. So that's I guess a nice thing for us fans to see. For the Hurricanes, the main talking point this week, I suppose, is that Jordie Barrett's back, but he's on the right wing, which is an unusual spot for him for the Canes. He's played there for the All Blacks. He is a big guy, so I suppose they could deploy him similarly to the way the Waratahs do with Folau on the wing, in terms of making him a good target for cross kicks, because he's able to jump up above and take some of those high balls. Means Chase Tiatia, who had a good kind of debut last week, gets to retain the 15 jersey. Laumapi and Proctor are still in the midfield. Ben Lamb's on the left wing. Perenara and Bodie Barrett are at 9 and 10. So, yep, that's pretty strong looking. Adi Savia, Karifi, Fafita, the Lucies, Liam Mitchell, Blackwell in the second row. I did give their second row a wee bit of grief kind of in the preview, the start of the season. I wasn't sure these guys would kind of have the stuff to cut it. It's still only the 4th round, but they're looking better than expected, so I'm pleased about that. Tumunga, Alan Coles, and Eves in the front row. Interesting, though, if you're a Canes fan, you get Almoa back. He's starting from the bench as the reserve hooker, so let's hope he gets some minutes. Reed Princeps there as well, Jackson Garden Bishop, Vince Arso. So it's a pretty strong-looking Canes team. For the Highlanders, you'll be pretty happy to see the Smiths are back. Ben Smith at 15, Aaron Smith at number 9. Josh Ioane moves back into 10 now that Ben Smith's at 15, so he's preferred over Gatland. Gatland can't retain a spot in the squad at all because Marty Banks is the man preferred on the bench. Yeah, Buckman's in there. Thomas Umunga Jensen's there. Tavita Lee's still there, although I don't think he played last week from memory. Interestingly, Naholo was on the bench, so I don't know if they're resting him for minutes or if it's a form thing. The forward pack, Lomax, Coltman, and Johnston in the front row. I'm curious to see which of these squads kind of gets on top at scrum time, because neither of them is like a Crusaders level pack. I suppose both of them kind of have their strengths, but you look at their loosies and both sides are very strong there. Luke Whitelock, James Lynchus, and Jackson Himopo for the Highlanders up against that Hurricanes loose trio is going to be quite a matchup. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Highlanders traditionally don't travel that well, but I mean, they started with a win at the Chiefs, so there's no reason they can't do it against the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes looked off the pace for the first 2 rounds, but picked things up against the Brumbies last week. So yeah, it's got a pretty good clash written all over it, but the bookies are saying Canes by 9, so I suppose kind of saying that it's not going to be as tight as it looks to me on paper, but yeah, bookies aren't always right. We will see. The next one, the All Aussie clash, Rebels up against Brumbies. It's a funny one to be having because they only played a few weeks ago. In the opening round, the Rebels beat the Brumbies in Canberra 34 points to 27. So they're already back at it. You like to think that the schedule's going to spread them out a wee bit, but I suppose having them kind of in quick succession at least builds a wee bit of animosity between the guys, so it could be a wee bit fiery. Hopefully these guys from Canberra are looking to kind of lift their game and get one back over the Rebels, because you don't really want your conference rival to be doing the double over you. And the Brumbies, in terms of their season, like they hit the end of their season was good last year, but they just left themselves too much ground to make up, and that record is heading down that same track. So they lost the one at home. They now really need to pick one up away to stay in that Aussie conference. The Rebels have had a bye already in that second week, so they've had Brumbies, bye, and then the Highlanders. So yeah, for them the Brumbies are still really fresh. They're the only other undefeated team alongside the Crusaders. So I'm still not convinced the Rebels are the real deal. They did this last year as well, where they started flying and then they dropped off the pace. But at home, I like to think that they will put in a good effort. In terms of the lineups, Robbie Abel gets a start at number 2 for the Rebels. That guy had a really good Mitre 10 Cup season for Auckland, so it's good to see him still playing. Coleman and Phillips, an impressive second row. Leota, Wilkin and Naisarani are going to have their work cut out when you look at this Brumbies kind of 6, 7, 8. Guinea and Cooper, though, are kind of your key men for these guys because both of them have started the season well. They've both got a few try assists each because that's just what they do. They are those creative players. They are going to create opportunities. Korobidi and Maddox on the wings. Meeks and English, who have been... It's not kind of like a Beale, Ashley Cooper style big name midfield, but Meeks and English do a job without so much of the glamour, and they will not let you down. Dana Hallett-Petty is at 15. Reece Hodge, interestingly, is still kind of being used as that super sub, who can cover half the backline positions because it looks like they've only got Ruru and Hodge in terms of backs on the bench. For the Brumbies, I was talking about 6, 7, 8. It's Valtini, Pocock, and Cusack. So Cusac's another one who probably doesn't get as much credit as he deserves. He's a very, very good player. There's no Samu in the starting lineup. He is benched. I'm not quite sure what the deal is with that, whether it's a coaching thing, it's a minutes thing, a fitness thing. But the guy looks good. I want to see more of him playing, so it's surprising. Valtini hasn't quite... I mean, he's supposed to be this big young gun. We sometimes get there with other Aussie players. They kind of get talked up. He's one of those guys who's been talked up. He hasn't blown anybody away yet with his performances, but he's been solid. He's not injured, which is the main thing because he has had a few problems with injuries in his early career. Sio, Faenga, and Alalatoa. I'd back them to be getting on top of that Rebels forward pack, but we will see. Arnold and Carter in the second row, which is good to have them back together again. Paolo and Liliafano, 9 and 10. Spate is back. He picked up a knock in that first round, so he is back. Hopefully he's kind of well rested. The injury may have kind of come at a good time because the guy did play with Ulster during the kind of break, so perhaps in terms of his energy levels, a little break, injury enforced or otherwise, was probably going to do him a little bit of good. Tom Banks is at 15. Tom Wright is your man at 12. He's a kind of rugby league convert, so how he goes in that midfield channel up against Meeks and English, who, like I said, will put in a shift, is going to be an interesting one to watch. So, yeah, there's lots to like about these games. As I said, the Brumbies definitely looking for revenge, but the Rebels are favoured by 4 points, so we'll see if they can kind of live up to the hype. I, for one, would definitely like to see an Aussie team kind of go on a run and put in a few dominant performances, get some wins over South African and New Zealand teams regularly. That would be nice. It'd add some spice to the comp. And let's face it, this Super Rugby season so far, apart from the Crusaders just dominating, even though they only beat the Blues by a couple of points, they've still looked very solid. Nobody really looks like beating the Crusaders, but apart from that, everybody looks vulnerable and everybody looks like they can beat each other on their day. So, yeah, let's see how these two games go. You guys let me know your thoughts, and we'll talk to you again soon. See you later.